The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. Not the gentle kind that calms your mind, but the relentless, suffocating kind that felt like it was trying to drown the world itself. The sky hung low over the small town of Blackridge, pressing down like a lid that refused to open. Streets were empty. Lights flickered behind drawn curtains, and the air smelled faintly of damp wood and something older. Ethan Carter arrived just before sunset. He stepped out of the bus, his shoes sinking slightly into the muddy road. The driver didn't even wait for him to grab his luggage before pulling away, tires splashing water as if escaping something unseen. Ethan stood there alone, staring at the town he had reluctantly returned to after 15 years. Nothing had changed, or at least that's what it looked like. Same crooked lamppost near the corner, same diner with the flickering neon sign, same narrow road that led deeper into the forest where the trees stood too close together as if whispering secrets to one another. Ethan exhaled slowly. "I shouldn't have come back," he muttered, but he had no choice. His grandmother had died 2 weeks ago, the only family he had left, and with her death came the inheritance, the old Carter house at the edge of town, the house everyone avoided. The road leading to it was worse than he remembered. It twisted unnaturally, cutting through a patch of forest that seemed untouched by time. His footsteps echoed strangely, too loud in the silence. And then he saw it, the Carter house. It stood exactly where it always had, leaning slightly, as though exhausted from standing for too long. Its windows were dark, but Ethan could have sworn something moved behind one of them. He blinked. Nothing. "Just your imagination," he whispered, though his voice didn't sound convincing even to himself. The front gate creaked loudly as he pushed it open. Rust flaked off onto his hands. The garden was dead, overgrown with weeds that had turned black from the constant rain. And the door, it was already open. Ethan froze. He distinctly remembered locking it years ago before leaving town. His grandmother had always insisted on it. "Never leave doors open at night," she used to say. "Some things don't need invitations." A chill crawled up his spine. "Hello?" he called out, stepping cautiously inside. No answer. The smell hit him immediately, rotting wood mixed with something metallic. The floorboards groaned under his weight, each step sounding like a warning. The house was too quiet, not empty quiet, listening quiet. He set his bag down near the staircase. Everything was covered in a thin layer of dust, but not enough for 15 years. That didn't make sense. Either someone had been here recently, or something else had. Ethan shook his head, trying to stay rational. "Probably neighbors checking in," he muttered, but deep down he knew something was wrong, very wrong. It started with the sound. A faint creak. Then another. Ethan froze, his breath catching in his throat. The sound came from upstairs, slow, measured, like footsteps. He stared at the staircase, heart pounding. "Hello?" he called, again, louder this time. The footsteps stopped. Silence. For a moment he almost convinced himself he had imagined it, and then, creak, one step right above him. Ethan's eyes slowly lifted toward the ceiling. The wood bent slightly under pressure. Something was standing there, right above his head. He stumbled back instinctively, his heart slamming against his ribs. "That's not possible," he whispered. The house had been empty. It had to be. Unless... The floorboards groaned again, but this time the sound moved, dragging, as if whatever was upstairs had begun to walk. Not normally, but slowly, unnaturally, like it was learning how. Ethan grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a broken wooden chair leg, and held it tightly. "Who's there?" he shouted, his voice cracking despite his effort to stay calm. No answer, only silence, and then a whisper, soft, barely audible, but unmistakably real. "Ethan." His blood ran cold. That voice, he knew it. It was his grandmother's voice. His grip tightened on the chair leg. "No," he whispered. That's not possible. She was dead. He had seen the body. He had attended the funeral. This was just his mind playing tricks on him. It had to be. "Ethan." The whisper came again, closer this time, from the staircase. Slowly, very slowly, a shadow appeared at the top of the stairs. It stretched unnaturally long, twisting along the walls as if it didn't belong to anything human. Ethan couldn't move. His body refused to listen. The air felt heavy, pressing against his chest. And then, a foot stepped into view. But it wasn't right. It bent the wrong way. Ethan's breath hitched. His mind screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Another step. More of the figure emerged from the darkness. Long, thin, wrong. And yet, it wore something familiar. A faded nightgown, the one his grandmother used to wear. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. "Grandma?" he whispered. The figure stopped. For a moment, it stood completely still. And then, its head snapped toward him. Too fast, far too fast. What Ethan saw next would haunt him forever. Because it wasn't his grandmother, not anymore. Its face was stretched into a smile that was far too wide. Its eyes were hollow, empty, blacker than the night outside, and its mouth opened slowly, as if it were struggling to remember how to speak. "Why did you come back?" The lights flickered, the floorboards screamed, and the thing that wore his grandmother's face started running down the stairs. Ethan didn't think. He ran. The chair leg slipped from his hand as pure instinct took over. His body moved before his mind could catch up, adrenaline flooding every nerve as that thing came crashing down the stairs behind him. The sound of its footsteps was wrong, too fast, too uneven, like bones snapping and resetting with every step. The front door, that was all he could think about. Get out now. His shoes slipped against the damp wooden floor as he lunged forward, fingers stretching toward the open door. The rain outside looked like salvation, cold, harsh, real. Behind him, a shriek. Not human, not even close. It sounded like dozens of voices layered together, all screaming through a throat that couldn't handle the sound. Ethan didn't dare look back. He was almost there. Just one more step. The door slammed shut, right in front of him, with a force that shook the entire house. Ethan stumbled back, heart slamming against his ribs. No. He grabbed the handle and yanked. It wouldn't budge. He pulled harder. Nothing. It was like the door had fused into the frame. Tap. Right behind him. Ethan froze. Slowly, he turned. It stood at the bottom of the stairs now, too still, too quiet, its head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if studying him. Its long arms hung limply at its sides, fingers twitching every few seconds. And that smile, it hadn't changed. If anything, it had grown wider. "Ethan," it croaked, its voice cracking like dry wood. "You left." A step forward. The floorboard beneath it let out a deep, hollow groan. "You weren't supposed to leave." Ethan shook his head violently. "You're not her." The thing paused. Its smile twitched. Then it laughed, a wet, broken sound that echoed through the walls. The lights flickered again. For a split second, everything went dark. And in that darkness, Ethan heard it move, fast, right toward him. The lights snapped back on. The creature was gone. Ethan's breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. He spun around wildly, searching every corner of the room. "Where are you?" he shouted. No answer, only the sound of rain against the windows. And then, creak, right behind him. Ethan turned. Nothing. Creak. This time, from the hallway. He stepped back slowly, his heart pounding louder than the storm outside. "This isn't real," he whispered. "This isn't real!" But the house disagreed. The walls seemed to breathe. The floorboards shifted under his feet, subtle but undeniable, like the house itself was alive. And then a memory hit him, sudden, sharp, unwanted. He was 8 years old, standing in this very hallway, his grandmother's hand wrapped tightly around his wrist. "Listen carefully, Ethan," she had said, her voice unusually serious. "If you ever hear something walking in this house at night," she had leaned closer, her grip tightening, "don't follow it." Ethan swallowed hard. His eyes darted toward the hallway. That was exactly where the sound was coming from now. Slow, dragging, waiting. "Don't follow it," he repeated under his breath. But something else crept into his mind. A second memory, one he had buried. "Grandma?" Ethan had asked, his voice trembling. "What if it calls my name?" She had gone silent. For a long moment, she said nothing. And when she finally spoke, her voice wasn't comforting, it was afraid. "Then it already knows you're here." Ethan's chest tightened, because that's exactly what had just happened. "Ethan," the voice came again, from the hallway, closer this time, more clear. His legs moved before he could stop them. One step, then another. "I shouldn't," he muttered, but he kept going. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The walls felt tighter, closing in. The air grew colder with every step. And the sound, it wasn't just ahead of him anymore. It was all around him. Creak, creak, creak. Ethan stopped, his breath fogged in front of him. That wasn't normal. It wasn't cold enough for that. Then he noticed the door at the end of the hallway, slightly open, a faint yellow light flickering from inside. The basement. Ethan's stomach dropped. "No," he whispered. He hadn't thought about that place in years, hadn't wanted to. Another memory, this one worse, much worse. He was younger, maybe 6, standing at the top of those basement stairs, crying, because he could hear something down there, something moving, something breathing. "Grandma, what's down there?" he had asked. She had rushed over immediately, slamming the door shut so hard it shook the walls. Her face had gone pale. "Nothing you should ever see." Back in the present, Ethan stared at the basement door. It was open now, waiting. "Ethan," the voice came from below, clearer than ever. It wasn't broken anymore. It sounded almost normal, almost like her.
Tears filled his eyes. "Grandma?" he called softly. Silence. Then, a soft sob from the basement. Ethan's heart cracked. That was her. It had to be. She sounded scared. "I'm here," he shouted, rushing forward. His hand reached the door. He hesitated, just for a second. "Don't follow it." But the crying grew louder, more desperate. "Ethan, please!" And that was it. That was all it took. He stepped inside. The basement stairs creaked under his weight as he descended slowly. The light flickered violently, casting shadows that twisted and stretched across the walls. The deeper he went, the colder it got. Halfway down, the crying stopped. Ethan froze. "Grandma?" he called. No answer. The light above him flickered one last time and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. For a moment, there was nothing, no sound, no movement, no air. And then, right next to his ear, a whisper. "I knew you'd come back." Because this time, that voice wasn't his grandmother's. Something grabbed his ankle hard and began to drag him down into the darkness.
Ethan screamed, not out of fear alone, but out of shock. His body slammed against the wooden stairs as something unseen dragged him downward. His fingers clawed desperately at the edges, nails scraping against splintered wood. "Let go!" he shouted, his voice echoing into the void. But the grip tightened, cold, unnaturally strong. His leg twisted painfully as he was pulled further into the darkness. The air below felt thick, suffocating, like breathing inside a sealed coffin. Then the lights flickered back on. Ethan gasped. He was at the bottom of the basement stairs now. But the thing that had grabbed him was gone. His ankle throbbed violently, red marks wrapped around it, finger-shaped, deep and bruising. He scrambled backward, his chest heaving as he looked around. The basement was not how he remembered it. It was bigger, much bigger. The walls stretched farther than they should have, disappearing into shadows that swallowed the weak yellow light above. The air smelled worse down here, rotting, damp, and something sickly sweet, like decay trying to hide itself. "This isn't real," Ethan whispered again, but this time even he didn't believe it. Drip, drip, drip. Ethan's eyes slowly followed the sound. From the ceiling, a dark liquid fell steadily onto the ground. He hesitated, then stepped closer. It wasn't water. It was thick, dark, sticky. Blood. Ethan stumbled back, nearly slipping as his foot hit something soft. He froze. Slowly, he looked down. A pile of old clothes. No, not just clothes. They were arranged, carefully, like someone had tried to shape them into something human. Ethan's breath caught. Recognition hit him like a punch. "That shirt! I used to wear it when I was a child." "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "No, no, no." More piles, scattered across the basement, different sizes, different ages, all arranged the same way, all wrong. And then they moved. Ethan's heart stopped. One of the piles twitched, just slightly, but enough. He staggered back, his legs barely holding him up. "This isn't happening." Another twitch, then another. The fabric shifted slowly, as if something underneath was trying to remember how to move. And then a voice, weak, cracked, from one of the piles. "We couldn't get out." Ethan's heart stopped. "No," he whispered. The piles shifted again. The fabric stretched upward unnaturally, forming a shape, a figure, and then a face. Not fully there, not complete, but enough.
It looked like him. Ethan let out a broken gasp. "That's not me!" The thing took a step forward. Its movement was jerky, unstable, like a puppet controlled by invisible strings. "You left us." Ethan shook his head violently. "I didn't. There's no us." More movement. Behind him, he turned. Dozens. The piles. They were all moving now, shifting, rising, watching. "You left us," they whispered together. Ethan backed away slowly, his mind unraveling. "I was just a kid," he stammered. "I didn't know what was happening." A memory surfaced, one he had buried deeper than the others. That night, the reason he left. The basement door had been open, just like now, and he had heard something, not crying, not whispering, laughing, soft, childlike, coming from below. "I remember," Ethan whispered, his voice shaking. He had come down here before. His breathing grew heavier as the truth clawed its way back into his mind. "I came down here," he said slowly. The figure stopped moving, listening. "I heard something, and I followed it." His chest tightened, and then silence. His eyes widened. "I wasn't alone." The basement seemed to pulse. The walls stretched further. The shadows deepened. "You found us," the figures whispered. Ethan's head snapped up. "No," he said. I don't remember that." A sharp pain shot through his head, and then it came back, clear, vivid. He was 6 years old, standing right here, in this basement, surrounded, not by monsters, but by children, dozens of them, all smiling, all staring, all wrong. "They were trapped," Ethan whispered, his voice breaking. The figures in front of him tilted their heads. "You opened the door," they said. His stomach dropped. "No," he whispered. "You let us out." Ethan's legs gave out beneath him. He collapsed onto the cold floor. "I didn't mean to," he choked. The figures began to move closer, slowly, surrounding him. "You left us," they whispered. Tears streamed down his face. "I was scared." "You left us alone." Their voices grew louder, more distorted. "And she had to stay." Ethan froze. "She?" he whispered. The room went silent, and then a slow, deliberate creak from behind him. Ethan turned. At the far end of the basement, where the shadows were thickest, something stood, taller than the others, thinner, more complete, and as it stepped forward, the light revealed its face. Ethan's breath stopped. It was his grandmother, or what used to be her. Her eyes were completely black, her skin stretched tightly over her bones, her smile wider than anything human should ever have. "You remember now," it said softly. Ethan shook his head, tears blurring his vision. "No, I didn't know." The thing tilted its head. "You opened the door," it repeated. The shadows around it writhed, "and I had to keep them from leaving." Ethan's voice trembled. "What are they?" The smile widened further. "They're what's left of what you freed." A cold silence filled the room. Ethan's heart pounded louder than ever. "And now," it continued. It took a step closer, and the door, it pointed slowly towards something behind Ethan, "is still open." Ethan turned, and for the first time he saw it, a massive, endless dark opening in the basement wall, breathing, waiting, and from within it something moved, something far worse than anything he had seen so far.
Ethan couldn't breathe. His eyes were locked onto the opening in the wall, that impossible, shifting darkness that seemed to pulse like a living thing. It wasn't just a hole. It was watching him, waiting. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "That wasn't there before." Behind him, the thing wearing his grandmother's face let out a soft, broken chuckle. "It was," it said calmly. "You just weren't meant to see it." Ethan's chest rose and fell rapidly. "That's not possible. Walls don't just open into that." "They do, when something on the other side wants them to." A low sound emerged from the darkness. Not a growl, not a voice, something deeper, like the earth itself shifting in pain. Ethan staggered backward. "What is that?" he asked, his voice barely holding together. The figures around him, the broken, half-formed versions of children, slowly turned their heads toward the opening, as if drawn to it, as if they belonged to it. "It's where they came from," the grandmother thing said. Ethan swallowed hard. "And what are they?" The answer came after a long pause. "Hungry." The word didn't echo. It settled, heavy, final. Ethan's legs felt weak again. No, I didn't bring that here." "You opened the door," it said again, stepping closer. "You invited them in." "I was 6, Ethan shouted, his voice cracking. "I didn't know what I was doing." The thing stopped in front of him, too close. Its hollow eyes stared directly into his. "And yet," it whispered, "the door obeyed you." That hit harder than anything else. Ethan's mind raced. "That doesn't make sense. Why would it listen to me?" For the first time, the thing's expression changed, just slightly. Not anger, not hunger, recognition. Because it knew you. Ethan's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" Before it could answer, a scream tore through the basement. Not from Ethan, not from the creatures, from the darkness. Something inside the opening shifted violently. The shadows stretched outward, reaching along the floor like black veins. The air turned colder, so cold that Ethan's breath came out in thick, visible clouds. Then a hand emerged. Ethan stumbled back, horror flooding every inch of him. It wasn't human. It was too long, too thin, its fingers bent at too many angles, and it was pulling itself out. "No!" Ethan whispered. The children around him began to shake, their forms flickering, glitching, like they were being pulled between two places at once. "It's calling them back," the grandmother thing said quietly. Ethan turned to her. "What happens if they go back?" The answer came instantly. "They won't come back alone." The hand gripped the edge of the opening. Then another emerged, and another. Something was climbing out, something big. Ethan's heart pounded violently. "Then we have to close it. We have to shut that thing." The grandmother thing tilted its head. "You think it's that simple?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "It has to be." A deep, wet sound echoed from the opening as something massive shifted inside. The walls trembled. The floor cracked slightly beneath Ethan's feet. "How do we close it?" he demanded. For a moment, the thing said nothing. Then it raised one long, trembling finger and pointed directly at him. "You don't," it said softly. Ethan's stomach dropped. No, I'm not doing that." "It needs something to hold it shut, something alive, something aware." Ethan shook his head violently. "No, there has to be another way." "There isn't." The children around him began to drift slowly toward the opening, not walking, sliding, pulled. Ethan grabbed one of them instinctively. "No! Stay back!" But the moment he touched it, he screamed. Pain shot through his hand, not physical, something deeper. Memories flooded his mind, not his own. Darkness, endless screaming, something watching from far, far below. Ethan ripped his hand away, collapsing to his knees. What did you do to them?" he gasped. "I didn't do anything," the grandmother thing replied. "You brought them here. I just kept them from leaving." Another arm burst out of the opening, then part of a face. Ethan's stomach twisted violently. It had no eyes, just a stretched, endless mouth. "That thing is coming out," he whispered. "Yes, and if it does," the answer came slowly, "it won't stop." The floor cracked louder now. The house itself groaned as if it were about to collapse. Ethan looked around wildly. The children, the thing, the opening, his mistake. "This is my fault," he said, his voice hollow. No one disagreed. The grandmother thing stepped closer again, its expression almost gentle now. "You can fix it." Ethan looked up at it, tears streaming down his face. "How?" It extended its hand toward the darkness. "Take my place." Ethan froze. "You stayed here all this time?" he whispered. It nodded slowly, keeping it shut. Another crack split through the floor. The thing inside pushed further out. "You're getting weaker," Ethan said, a faint smile. "I've been dead for 2 weeks." That hit him like a punch to the chest. "And now," it continued, "it needs someone new." Ethan looked at the opening again, then at the children, then back at her. "I don't want to die," he whispered. The response was immediate. "You already did," it said. Ethan blinked. "What?" The basement went silent. Even the thing in the darkness paused. And then the grandmother thing spoke one final sentence. "You never left this house, Ethan." Everything stopped. Ethan's mind shattered. "What are you talking about?" Memories rushed back, fast, violent, unstoppable. The night he left, the bus, the city, the years that followed, all of it felt wrong, blurry, fake. "No," he whispered, shaking his head. "You came down here," it said gently. His breath trembled. "And you never came back up?" Ethan's hands began to shake uncontrollably. "I lived. I had a life." "Did you?" Silence. Ethan turned slowly toward the opening. Something inside it smiled, and suddenly everything made sense.
Ethan couldn't feel his body anymore. Not properly. His hands trembled in front of him, but they didn't feel like his. The cold in the basement had seeped deeper than skin. It had settled into his bones, into his thoughts. "No," he whispered again, weaker this time. "That's not true. I remember everything." But even as he said it, the memories began to fall apart. The apartment he lived in, blurry. The friends he had, faceless. The years he thought he spent away from this place, empty. Like a dream he had mistaken for a life. Ethan staggered backward, his breath uneven. "I never left," he said slowly. The grandmother thing watched him quietly. "You couldn't," it replied. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Then what have I been all this time?" The answer came softly. "Part of the house." Silence. A deep crack split through the basement floor. The thing in the darkness pushed further out, its long, twisted arms now fully gripping the edge, its massive, eyeless face twisted unnaturally as it forced itself into the world. Time was running out. Ethan turned toward the opening again. This time, he didn't look away. Something inside it recognized him. He could feel it, not with his eyes, not with his mind, with something deeper. It knew him, the same way it had known him all those years ago. "That's why it listened to me," Ethan whispered. The grandmother thing nodded. "You weren't just a child who found the door. You were chosen." Ethan let out a hollow laugh. "Chosen? For this?" The thing in the darkness let out a low, earth-shaking sound. The walls trembled violently now. The children around him began to break apart, some pulled toward the opening, others collapsing into stillness. "There's no time left," the grandmother thing said. Ethan looked at her, really looked this time. For a brief moment, he could almost see her, the real her, behind the stretched skin, behind the darkness. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "I left you here alone." A pause, then a faint, almost human smile. "You were just a child." That was the first kind thing she had said. Ethan took a deep breath, or at least something that felt like one. "So this is it? I take your place, and it stops?" "Yes." "And they go back?" Another pause. "Most of them." Ethan nodded slowly. He already understood what that meant. Nothing about this was clean. Nothing about this was fair, but it had to end. The thing in the opening let out a deafening roar as more of its body forced through, its mouth stretched wider than should be possible, reaching toward the basement like it was trying to swallow everything at once. Ethan stepped forward. Each step felt heavier than the last. The darkness seemed to react to him, shifting, pulling, almost welcoming. "Ethan!" He stopped. The voice wasn't from the creature. It was from behind him. He turned. For just a second, the grandmother stood there. Not the twisted version, not the broken thing. Her, as she used to be, warm, gentle. "You don't have to be afraid," she said softly. Tears streamed down Ethan's face. "I am," she smiled. "I know." And then she was gone. The illusion shattered. The darkness roared louder. Ethan turned back toward the opening. "All right," he whispered, and then he stepped inside. The moment his body crossed into the darkness, everything changed. The noise stopped. The movement froze. The creature halted mid-emergence. And then, slowly, painfully, it began to retreat. Its massive form pulled back into the void, resisting, fighting, but something stronger was forcing it back. Ethan. The darkness wrapped him completely, cold, endless, but he didn't scream, because now he understood. He could feel it, all of it, the door, the things behind it, the hunger and the weight, the responsibility. The children were being pulled back too, one by one, their broken forms dissolving into the darkness, their whispers fading. "You left us." "I'm sorry," Ethan whispered into the void. Their voices softened, and then they were gone. Silence returned. The basement began to repair itself slowly. The cracks in the floor sealed. The walls shifted back into place. The opening closed, gone, as if it had never existed. Upstairs, the house fell still. The rain outside finally stopped. And deep beneath the floorboards, in a place no one would ever see, Ethan stood alone, not alive, not dead, watching, waiting, listening, because sometimes Very late at night, the floorboards still creak, and if someone listens closely, they might hear a whisper. Not threatening, not angry, but tired. Don't follow it.
Subscribe and comment down your experience.